Theft of Swords, Volume 1 in the Ryo Revelation series by Michael J. Sullivan, published in 2011. This is a non-spoiler review, so I will keep details as vague as possible. As you've probably noticed, this is now an audio-only review. The whole sitting down in front of a camera thing, I don't know, I never found it that comfortable, and I didn't like all the editing that was required. It was time-consuming, and worse yet, it was interfering with my reading. Anyway, the books, since this is technically two distinct stories, is described as follows on Amazon. They killed the king, they pinned it on two men, they chose poorly. Voila. It's been a while since I read a Sword and Sandals epic that was this enthralling, starting with its core characters. I thoroughly enjoyed the banter between Royce Melbourne and Hadrian Blackwater. They have very distinct personalities and fascinating pasts. Anytime I'd get more backstory on them, my ears, they'd perk up because I really wanted to know more about these characters. Why is Royce so brooding? Where did Hadrian acquire his fighting skills? These two make for a rather interesting pair of protagonists, given their role in the broader story, mainly because they're not interested in that broader picture. They just want to make enough money to get by and enjoy their lives in relative quiet. And the broader story is well realized. It's not always that compelling. I got more information on the politics and the history of this realm than I generally enjoy, but it does help distinguish this series from others. Unfortunately, and this is a problem I have with a lot of books, there's a ton of time spent following other characters. I get why we have it. Royce and Hadrian may not be interested in the bigger picture, but the author certainly is. And the additional perspective, it clues us into what's happening in the world at large. They're just not the most compelling of perspectives to me. Most of the time they popped up, I found myself a little annoyed. Then there is this trial sequence that bothered me for two reasons. One, it brought the story to a complete halt, and two, it made one of the characters, one who I was never quite on board with, look really dumb. This character did multiple things early on in the narrative that struck me as unnecessarily harsh, pointlessly so, even dangerous, and I was waiting for some sort of explanation. Seems it's all just in here to make our villain seem that much more clever by comparison. There's also a character named Myron who was a bit on the cartoony side. I was actually shocked by how oblivious he was given what we were told about him, and he's not the only cartoony character in this novel. At times the book itself feels really campy. Also, given the opening of the book, I was expecting a lot more action. There isn't much of anything along those lines till a good third of the way into the text, and even that isn't terribly captivating. Furthermore, there's a very cliche plot device used later in book 2 that only exists to draw our characters back into the story, which is another thing I want to bring up. Why publish this as one volume? It contains two distinct books, only loosely connected by the title. It took me a long time to get back into the story with the second book. The adventure contained in the narrative is interesting enough, but the stuff around it, not so much. It picks back up eventually, it just takes a while. In conclusion, Theft of Swords is definitely worth reading. It reminds me a little of Red Sea Under Red Skies, which I also quite liked. I'm giving this 5 out of 5 stars, which may surprise you given all my complaints, but most of these gripes, they really didn't bother me that much. Anyway, that's all I've got. If you like this review, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thanks for listening. Peace.